Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. That was really nice of you. Day 2 of the conference. It is the morning. So we're going to try to make this as lively, engaging as possible. I don't know about these gentlemen. I don't mind to be interrupted as I'm talking, so I encourage you to do that. Part of it, we have a presentation where we talk about kind of what we're doing at each of the schools, talk a little bit about partnerships and things like that. But really, the core of it, I think that the thing that we're going to get the most out of it is these conversations that we'll have about how do you go about setting up your partnerships, whether it be with a college, whether it be with a corporation. And to get us started, I guess I'll introduce myself. My name is Manny Tejeda, one of the program directors at CFES Berlin Pathways. This partnership that we'll start to talk about in Dr. V and Dr. Brown, you're a doctor now, by the way, just hope you know. They're going to talk about it from their context, from their side of the coin, and it's meant to give you a sense of what works for them. That's not to say it's going to work for you, but you can start getting ideas about what are the things that you want to do at your respective schools, whatever goals you might have. So just by a show of hands, how many counselors do we have in the room? So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So how many folks, how many teachers? Okay. So we have 2 college partners, 3 DCR advisors, and then we're missing someone.
Private foundation.
Private foundation, perfect.
Coach.
Coaches, awesome. So this is a good mix, right? Because we could probably start a partnership, all of us, just thinking about the different roles that we play. So that's really what this session is going to be about. We have obviously less than an hour at this point, but in that hour, we're going to cover a lot. But just know that really what's going to make it the most fruitful is those conversations that we'll have either between the slides or at the end of the slides, okay? So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mr. V, who is the principal at Northern Lehigh High School. And I should say, we had a third panelist who was Bob's right-hand person. He's now at the middle school, and unfortunately, he couldn't be here with us, and that's David. But Bob is going to try to do his best. I'm going to record him. Well, we are recording him. And I'm going to share it with Dave to see if he did a good job. But I'm not putting any pressure on you.
No pressure.
Take it away.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Bob Delassie, high school principal in Northern Lehigh High School, and I'm very excited to be here today to share with you a little bit of what we've been doing over the last 2 years in spite of COVID. COVID could not keep us down. So hopefully you can take away some ideas that we have done and maybe drop some ideas on me of maybe where we could actually improve upon after I show you what we've done over the last 2 years. This is my athletic director demonstrating his school spirit in helping us change our culture. Next slide, please. Here's a little background. I think we're all familiar with CFES. What we have really got hooked on, I got hooked onto this 2 years ago with the essential skills. And I saw in the essential skills the requirements for success after high school. But why wait till after high school? We have to develop these things now while they're in high school and actually before that. But I'll get to that a little bit later. We formed a partnership with CFES, Lehigh University, and Northern Lehigh School District. And if you can go to the next slide, I'll demonstrate to you how important it is that to have a team. So when we came here 2 years ago, we weren't really sure what CFES was, but we had a connection with Dr. White, who is a since retired professor at Lehigh University. Now, the connection of Dr. White and our superintendent and myself is that we're all Lehigh graduates. And we, Mr. Link, my superintendent, and I both taught at Centennial School, well, you can say to characterize it as a special education lab school where you actually put into practice every single day what you learn the next thing. So that was our connection. So we got hooked into the CFES family, and through that, we garnered a very strong relationship with Lehigh to start a scholars mentor program through Lehigh University. Next. One of the things I do want to say too is that you saw that we have 4 people there, and you saw a whole list of names. It's very important if you're going to have a mentor program that you have support from the very top. So I came in knowing I already had the support, because I came here with my superintendent and he asked me, what do you think? And I'm like, oh, well, I'm all in, we're doing this. This is great, because this is something, there are 3 aspects of CFES. You have the mentorship, you have the essential skills, and you have the college and career pathway. Well, the college and career pathway, we kind of have at the high school, because that is in essence what our counselors and our teachers are trying to do. So we kind of have that part in, but the other 2 parts, no, we don't really have formal mentorships, and we're not teaching the essential skills. So I really focused on those 2 things. Now, okay, it's okay. One of the things that we did, we focused on the essential skills, and I had an idea of what we're going to do and how we're going to bring the essential skills through our classrooms to our students. What that morphed into is we have now shifted gears and have created an essential skills class at the middle school. My right-hand man, Mr. Hauser, couldn't make it today for this presentation, so I'm going to apologize for him. He wasn't very happy not being able to come, because he wanted to share what he and I had worked together on. But he actually worked on taking the essential skills and, like I said, creating a class in middle school. But how do we put that in the high school? We revamped our whole positive behavior support program and put the essential skills as the desired behavior that we're looking for the students to exhibit. If they're exhibiting the essential skills, then they're doing the right thing and they're not getting discipline reports. If they're setting goals, if they're persevering, if they're showing agility, if they're networking, teamwork, showing leadership, they are doing the right thing and they're being successful. Next slide. What we ended up doing to market this, we created these icons to represent each of the essential skills. Leadership would be the culminating thing that they would get once they've exhibited the other 5 essential skills. We actually partnered with our art teacher, Mr. Shuey, to actually create these. And then we also came up with a culminating icon. Next slide. We created posters with descriptions of all of these things. All right. Next slide. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I will definitely share these things with you later. I want to get to the mentorship, but I want to show the base and the background of where we're coming from and why it was essential to the mentorship to have these things in place. Next. We also came up with a slogan called Inspire. Innovate, never settle, pursue individuality and responsibility every day. And if you look into those represent each of the essential skills. We wanted to come up with a slogan that can really highlight our program. And in this, we market this and we're really shifting to change the culture of our school. Next. Now, what we have also done, we have created a positive referral system that we're using through Google Forms and Google Sheets to track students in attainment of each of these badges. So goal setting, teamwork, networking, agility, perseverance. You show that you have achieved these, you get the leadership. And what do you get? Leadership ultimately. Next slide. We're creating a new core. Now, we're replacing an old core. We had a blue and white core, school colors for those students that have shown proficiency in all 3 keystones. We're now shifting, making that part of the goal setting badge. And we are going to have a new board for all students that have attained the essential skills, the leadership badge. Navy blue, which is our school colors. Red, new energy, new pursuits, and tan, synthesis of knowledge and skills. I have to give Mr. Hauser credit for this. He had the idea, he pitched it to me. I thought it was awesome. I'm like, what better way to really incorporate this into your culture and actually have this as an ultimate incentive. Next. Now, what you're not seeing right now, you're not actually seeing the mentors, because we actually had the videos of the mentors. I wanted to play for you because this was the tricky part. So last year, I don't know if you know this, but there's this thing COVID that's been running around, and that really threw us a curveball. And we were like, okay, how are we going to continue our mentorship in our program with Lehigh University? So Manny and I put our heads together with the team from Lehigh University, Dr. White, Donnie Roberts, and Denise Butro, all right? And we said, okay, this is what we can do. We're already Zooming with Google Meeting and everything. We're gonna do this. We're gonna set it up twice a month, 30 minutes a pop. Manny and I will bump in, and also with Donnie Roberts. So we would take turns bumping into the conversations, all right? But not being there for every conversation, because, you know, if daddy's watching, you're not gonna get as in a rich conversation. All mentors had their clearances. So we were good to go. They received some training from Manny. We focused on the essential skills. Manny and I met with them at least 3 times before we actually introduced them to the scholars. And I don't know if anybody was here for the session yesterday morning, but we actually matched the mentees with the mentors. I had maybe 8 mentees. Apathy, COVID, took my numbers from 36 to 8. Okay, that's fine. Yesterday morning, I forget her name, who was here yesterday in this room? Principal.
Heather.
Heather, yes. She said, start small. Yeah, okay, fine. Hey, if you have 1 kid that needs to be mentored, that's enough to start a program. But the thing is that you gotta be patient, you have to be resilient, and you can't accept no. Can't accept no. Next slide. Some other, oh, there we go. Oh, so, all right, please click again. All right, so we wanted, okay, so the reason, what this was we had each of the mentors create a video, an introduction video for their mentees. So that was just one way that we could introduce them ahead of time before they actually met them live stream. We wanted to do that. It was a nice way, nice icebreaker, and our kids really liked that. And it took the anxiety down, because who are we going to meet? Oh, I see a face. I hear a voice. Oh, she's from Brooklyn. Oh, she's from Columbia. Oh, that's really cool. She went to high school at a really large high school. She went to high school, a really small high school. I can relate to that. So they really got a feel, they got a taste for their mentors before they actually met them. Next slide. Some other things that we're doing to kind of solidify and change the culture and incorporate this into our daily routines. We each, at the middle school and the high school, we each had opening day presentations. Actually, so no, you actually get to see Mr. Hauser up here a little bit. Obviously, I don't know if you can see that, but he's much better looking and he's better shape too. But he actually went in and went through the essential skills. And they have a flex period where they actually have the essential skills class. So they're taught. So it's taught there. So by the time they get to the high school, they're already well aware of the essential skills and why it's important. But what I did, I took a different approach. I wanted to introduce CFES on a wide scale. Now, what we have done, we approached this from 2 ways. I actually had the teachers identify the students who would be leaders and would make good scholars. And this has nothing to do with academics. It has to do with leadership potential. All right. Also, because we're not excluding the scholars just to a certain group. Scholars can bring in other scholars. Hey, look, I will tell you this, Honey Bunny over here would be great for that. That was her nickname for me. I'm not being condescending. She called me that, so I'm just teasing her. But she would be great mentor. So I'm going to invite her in. Say, hey, Mr. Tejeda, Honey Bunny would love. She'd be awesome here because she likes the outdoors and she's a leader and she has worn 15 different hats in the last 15 years. So she would be a great leader. She would be a good mentor. I've also talked about the mentorship with Lehigh University. That's not good enough. That's only going one way. We want to go the other way too. And that's the bridge between the high school and the middle school. Because then once our students have access and exposure to their Lehigh mentors, they are going to be trained to be mentors in the middle school. And then that's still not good. Eventually, our plan is to have the middle school students mentor the incoming sixth graders. So we're going to really bridge that gap and have it connected everywhere. So our plan is to take the essential skills all the way K through 12. Next slide. Additional thing, this came out of the blue, and that's one of the great things about partnering with CFES is that opportunities become available that you had no idea. Colgate Palmolive had a Colgate Cares Day about a month ago, and they dedicated 30-minute slots for any CFES scholars that wanted to partake in a Q&A session with them. So Manny threw that at me. I jumped on it. We ended up having about a dozen scholars show up. They brought the lunch up and they sat there, and we had 3 mentors from Colgate Palmolive that shared their pathway. And that really generated a lot of Q&A. And, you know, I don't know if you're familiar with Slatington, but it's a really small town. And a lot of the kids really don't go. I mean, going to Allentown's a big deal for them. Allentown's about 30 minutes, maybe 20 minutes out. So they really get out and expand. So they got to meet some, employees of an international company, which I think is awesome. But they don't get that exposure unless they're with us. So we want to try to get them involved with many different things. Another thing that I want to impress upon everyone is we have a number of activities planned that really encompasses mentorship. We have a college and career plan at the end of April, but we're going to have a number, I think right now we have 40 colleges and businesses combined that are committed to this. With that being said, where does that benefit the scholars specifically? They're going to actually get a more intimate meeting with a panel of our guests to do kind of like a fireside chat. Other things we're looking to do that would foster mentorships is to have an alumni fireside chat where we actually contact former graduates, alum of Northern Lehigh High School that have been in college at least 2 or more years. Bring them back, and usually around right before the holiday break, they're usually back visiting. So they would jump at that opportunity. I've already handpicked a number of them that are really excited about that prospect. But the next part is that how about those alumni that are already in their careers? So we're going to plan another alumni fireside chat for those alum that are actually in their careers and working their jobs. I think, last slide. I think that, yes. So that was a number of things that I wanted to share with you. If I could leave you on a couple different notes. Mentorship essentials. Number one, you need a cooperating school or business. Relationship building is key. If you don't build that trust between the mentors and the mentees, it's not going to work. You don't have to force it. You have to happen organically. One thing I learned yesterday, have a fluid mentor program. You don't have to assign it. Let it develop organically. Then that is going to be a lasting bond, because what's going to happen is this, is the mentors are going to advise and inspire beyond academics. They're going to inspire the mentees to be successful in and out of school. And that is key, because school is only one aspect of life. They want to be successful in everything they do. And please don't understand I'm saying you can't fail. Failure is just another opportunity to succeed. Oh, and it's a two-way street. It's going to benefit the mentors every bit as well as the mentees. Have the mentors need to respect the mentees as equals. That goes a long way, because then their voice is going to be heard. They need to practice active listening. And I will say that I would not, unless you are a trained advisor, a CCR advisor, I would recommend use your Manny to do that training, get that training. Use your resources. Don't be paralyzed by the enormity of it, because it's intimidating. Heather yesterday was saying, I was overwhelmed. Yeah, I was too, but I don't know if you see the gray in my beard, but I've been around the block a couple times, and I was okay with taking that chance. And like, hey, look, we have the resources available. I think the one thing that we can't do is wait too long. Let's go into it, because you can always shift. You can always change. I think the last 2 years has shown and convinced everybody that you can do it. So the worst thing you can do is wait too long. So we're constantly shifting. But communication is also key. So take away this. Create the partnership. Provide the training to your mentors. Create a plan and expect it to change. Be patient. Don't be paralyzed. Don't be afraid. And overall, enjoy that time with your mentors and mentees. Enjoy the process. See their successes and celebrate. And I would like to introduce Dr. Brown.
I thought, good morning, folks. I just have my stuff here. I thought it was going to be easy to follow Bob, right? And we were talking last night. I always put low expectation of people, but outstanding.
That's okay.
And I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna steal your idea.
Steal it.
A couple of ideas they had up there. The one with the sort of the badging and the cords for
Yes.
graduation.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in the state of New York, which we are in now, right? I don't think I'm from Queens, New York. So anything involved, the Bronx is like something foreign to us. I forgot we are in New York. And we have advanced regions, regions distinction, those things we put on diplomas to show something. They matter much. But I think earning the different stages and then what you wear at graduation is outstanding. Even something that might seem trivial, I think kids would pick up on that. And also what you're doing with incorporating the middle school. So I appreciate that. So I feel these things to learn. And I really appreciate that. So kudos to what you guys are doing. So I'm Stan Brown. Before I came to Northside Charter High School, which is a grade 9 to 12 high school in North Williamsburg, Greenpoint, Long Island, Greenpoint, Brooklyn. It's all on the island of Long Island, but we're right there almost on the border of Queens. I learned about CFES because I was a board member, probably 12 years ago, I think, might be 10 years ago. And the irony of it is that I interviewed with Rick Dalton and didn't know him in CFES, and I wanted to be involved. I was at the college board at the time with the College Access Organization, and Rick, you mentioned it yesterday in the opening, recruited my, he's nice, recruited my wife. She's now ex-wife, but that's a great friend. But recruited her from Cardozo High School in Queens, New York, and to Middlebury, right, with a bunch of other people. I just saw the other day, I was talking to her. The people who came up there who were from Queens, they were Black, Latino, male, females, sort of like a posse coming up to Middlebury College, and none of them ever been, most people haven't been to Vermont, coming from that area. And they're at one of their classmates' wedding yesterday. 30 years later, they're still a very tight-knit group. And she's also a board member of Middlebury. So I knew the power that Rick had, what he has with students and changing their lives and families. And even back then, I joined the board. I'm still on the board as an audit committee chair and doing stuff. So anyway, just by way of background, before I got an education, I was this finance guy, management consultant, thought I would, have my MBA, I would do what MBAs do, try to rule the world, and somehow got into working for the College Board. Right, so when Leroy today was clapping about no ACT, SAT, if I was still working this, who's going to pay us? My kids to go to college because that's how we made money. But I learned a lot when I was at the College Board about education in general. It's not just a testing company. They have a whole financial aid and other higher ed products. They were running schools at the time for the College Board. I was a strategy guy, corporate strategy, and I did a lot of things there. Just learned a lot about education. And there we did some research and realized that if a school counselor, formerly known as guidance counselor, had one master's course in college counseling, they were lucky in their program. It shocks people to know that the folks who counsel our kids who are in college are just not naturally trained by education. They learn on the job around how to do this stuff. And it varies. My whole dissertation was about following, it's a long title, but the leaders of school districts who do counseling, how to create college-going environments, looking at low, moderate, and high-income areas. Is a job different, and how do you create these environments? Very interesting work. But so, flash forward a year and a half ago, whenever it was, I came to Northside. Like I said, it's a charter school, so in the middle of New York, so we have goals to meet, to be renewed, and things of that nature. And they did okay with the kids in terms of academic performance and getting kids, let's say, ready for college. I think our number of percent of students who get a bachelor's degree 6 years after graduating high school was about 29%. And in my interview, they said, "Oh, that's horrible." So that's not bad, given the research I've done. Mostly Hispanic, some African American students in the school, and just knowing the national numbers that for that group is around 40% nationally, which is kind of skewed, but probably in New York City and other urban areas, probably in the teens. Even out in the suburbs, and I want to tell you that some of these allegedly high-performing schools, very wealthy areas, is probably in 50, 60% in terms of who gets a degree after 6 years. And so where do you get that number? It comes from the clearinghouse. People don't like to publish it because it doesn't make your tax base grow when you have 100% of your kids saying they're going to college and only 42, 57% get a degree after 6 years. But that's another story. When I came here, they wanted to get that number improved in terms of people earning bachelor's degrees, have them going to different type of colleges, more private schools versus the City University of New York. And they truly want to be around college prep. And I said, got it. And came there and spent about 8 months revising the mission, vision of the organization, and saying we're going to be about college prep. And unmistakably college prep, and that meant something that, there's not, we don't deny kids from this, but we don't speak about vocational CTE. It's in there somewhere, but we're a small school, 400 kids, and we got certain things to do. We're going to be about college prep. And at that time, the assets we had maybe Abbott, advancement via individual determination. They've been around for 30-something years, and they have a curriculum. We might have had a class or two, took 2 grades through that. We had an SAT prep course that ran throughout the year, right? So we had these sort of different things. Hey, they're about college prep. And we had 5 school counselors. So you can do the math. The typical urban school has 1 counselor, 300 kids, and you're lucky if you have that. someone, we had like 1 to 80 kids. And none of them knew anything about college. They did mandated counseling, they did social mobility. They were not skilled. Then we had a college counselor who handled all the seniors, right? You know that problem is that's 12th grade. We start a college process then, and you get back and they sort of don't have the time to truly engage in what they have to engage in terms of a journey to figure out what this is about. So you get the outcomes that you kind of deserve because you kind of get a handful of kids, we're lucky to have 29% that get a bachelor's degree to go in all sorts of different places. But we had a lot of people, right? And we had some access in place. And so, but I knew that, and we did some reorganization, but I knew from the experience I've had as a board member of CFES and hearing stories like Bob just told about schools and partnerships and mentorships and essential skills and being part of this conference for a while, I said, I have to get these folks involved in my school. And I know we have an AVID program, right? Manny and I talked about this, but I had to have to connect it somehow. What we were going to do, I didn't know. I just said we have to be connected, introduce Manny and Rick to my board on a board meeting. They didn't quite know what this is. You have to have these folks involved. And if you go to the next slide, I'll tell you as we're trying to, there we go. I used this for another conference the other day. The Greens didn't show up, but I'll speak to it. I knew they had a place, CFDS, in our organization and in our model, right? And what you see here, you can see this one. But all this says, if you, Rick was he giving out or selling his book last night? Giving. Oh, good. All right. So Rick Dalton and Ed St. John have another book. It's a blue cover called House for Every Student. Something. Right. I'm sorry, not doing it. Do I have a site here? So excellent book. He has the one that you guys saw last night was given out was about rule. This one was mainly the research Ed St. John and a few other people at University of Michigan have done around this is called academic capital formation. Raise your hand if you heard of that before. Again, as a budding researcher, doctoral student 6-7 years ago, I love this stuff because if you can see it, what it does, it's a framework, right, in theory that takes human capital formation. So the inputs of in rational theory around why people might do something. You go to college, you get education because it builds knowledge, so you can make money, and you're improving human capital. Social capital, so shorthand, social capital formation. Who your networks, and how do you develop networks? Cultural capital at the bottom, which is what you bring from your culture and your surroundings. It's kind of the shorthand is what do you know? What are the family conversations that you bring? Or the deficits in all three of these areas, right? They're domain specific. So you can have, they talk about, I think, again, Leroy picking on because he talks about, I had the street knowledge and I had the academic knowledge, right? So someone can be very strong in social capital because they have a network on the streets. I forgot what he grew up in that he knows how to handle the streets, but they may not have it in how do you have to go to college, what you need to do to survive in college, right? The Michelle Obama story was she went to Princeton and brought twin bed sheets, but they need to be XL sheets, right? And these are things that folks may not tell you. And, that's something that you would pick up with your network of people who tell you the columns about. On this other side, which you can't see, just again talks about, and I urge you to get the book, because it's very good to be able to define what you have to do with low, moderate income kids, whether you're rural or an urban place where they're first generation, but talks about sort of concerns about cost up there with human capital, concerns about career, right? That's what it says here. In social capital, it's supportive networks, navigating a system. I can't read this so well. Down here in culture capital, just college knowledge, right? And what Ed and Rick did in that book was map what CFDS Bill Catholics does for school partners. And I did the same thing for a presentation. I put, here's our approach to post-secondary readiness, because our school is about getting kids ready, which means not needing remediation, when you go off to, higher ed in your field of study, right? You know the stories our kids, if when they go to college, they need a ton of remediation, they spend a lot of, say, New York, they run out of money in aid quickly because they're spending their time spinning wheels in remediation before they can start coursework. So just again, this doesn't show up so well, but the things I said that we have, because we have assets in our building, and it's really about putting them together. And that's where I like CFPS, because I think they're going to be helpful. I'm going to tell you exactly what we do, but in these areas of human capital, social capital, and cultural capital formation, they play in all these areas. So I'll give you an example. The college, in fact, when we started last spring, we immediately got involved with the college career readiness training. I think we had 4 parents. That might not sound like a lot, but in high school, if you had 0 participation from parents, typically ones that I was going to say sue us, but challenge us a bit around certain things, you're lucky, right? But we had 4, and because it's in English, Spanish, and we have a lot of population with a dominant language in the household of Spanish, they took the course and got the certificate, right? And so that's part of building, although we have counselors and we have Naviance and access like that, and we have an advisory program, getting the parents involved, right? That's not cultural capital, where they get familiar and they get empowered. So it's an awesome program and it's self-paced, and 4 of them did that. We're going to try to have, by the end of this year, be nice if I had 30% of the entire school population, 420 kids, of their parents engaging with that. And that's going to happen down here, particularly, and getting their certificate is powerful because a lot of our parents don't have a certificate in anything. Getting from the university or not, I think is very powerful. We hope to, and that's one of the thoughts, just listening to you, Bob, we don't have a middle school and we suffer, right? And I think a lot of people suffer, but you take kids as they come from somewhere in the city of New York. We know as of 2 weeks ago, 75% of our freshmen are 6th grade or below. 75% of our kids in reading 6th grade or below, right? Partly due to the pandemic, but probably they might have been at 7th grade, no pandemic. This is how it is. Probably all across the country and in urban districts, and definitely in New York City. So we don't have a middle school to groom you or to proclaim that we have some magic. That's what a lot of charter schools say. Oh, we know how to take kids from pre-K and bring them all the way up. But we get them in 9th grade, we have to be able to get them out, right? Difficult to be able to do with people at this particular level in literacy, and you have to get them up with numeracy too, and try to get there and do things. We know we have an idea that with those kids, we need to start early. Some of the research is getting sites, but they talk about 9th grade as that pivotal time to transfer information to students about high school and college. We forget high school. We got to teach them what high school is about, that you're actually earning credits. We have we have juniors, right, that were in the school before I came, who didn't know when they failed 3 classes, they didn't get those credits. But they chug along, right? What's going on? Well, oh, yeah, I think I failed. Yeah, but you didn't get the credit. They need to know that. It's the same thing. You didn't get the credit. You have to repeat it. You have to do something in summer school and so forth, and they get all backed up. Senior year, scrambling, right? And that's a phenomenon I know happens a lot of places, but it's our fault for not teaching them about how do you accumulate credit in high school and how to prepare. And I believe CFPS can help with that, about transferring information to our 9th graders so they start to pay attention about what the future holds. Because there's old data that's probably true. 92% of middle school kids all say they're going to go to college. 100% say they're going to finish high school. 92% say they're going to go to college, right? And we know the numbers, how that doesn't work out because it becomes practical, right? As human beings and developing minds when they're in 10th, 11th grade. This is not fun. If they know credits, they learn that they're behind credits. Parents, down here, that cultural capital, college I don't know about, but maybe you should go to work. They're working, right? After school jobs, some of them last year, because we were 100% remote, they were working during school, with their phone on, camera on, they ignored us, and then in the class, they were still on because they were working, that. And all types of disruption happens there. So you have to get them in ninth grade. So part of our plan is to have CFPS be able to work with our ninth graders about transferring some of this knowledge, preparing them how to understand what's happening. There's even the thought when I'm taking from Bob, and I think we might have talked about a little bit, of partnering with another charter middle school in doing this mentorship and trying to figure out how we get CFPS involved with a partner of ours, which is St. Francis College in downtown Brooklyn, who we actually teach 2 of the courses this semester, and we'll do 2 or 3 next semester, with the idea of having early college inside our school for that 10 to 20%, maybe less, of kids who are ready for college. That's my belief. About 10 to 20% of kids in most high schools can go to college in 11th grade. They're ready. Let's get them in. That's not, again, I told you where I came from, 6 years at the College Board and AP, it's a wonderful thing. Let's put them in college, let's start earning credit, it's challenging, and give them rigor. And so we have, actually I have 4 courses, 2 are from National Equity Lab, but we have 2 other courses. But we have a partner, we have access to their president, and so, and let's figure out how we can, point to Manny, because I want him to get it done, with myself, about how can we already have the partnership, let's bring CFPS, and let's get a middle school, at least one middle school, that we want to partner with. Again, that helps me recruit kids. As a charter school, we have to recruit the students. You can come from anywhere, well, anywhere, I'd say, but mostly from New York City. You know, this other stuff, they come from Jersey, how do you get paid for it? But it's important to start early. And so I think the value, because we came Northside to CFPS in a much different way than Bob's school. Because I was sort of an insider, knowing what they can do. But I had the belief that they understood the academic capital formation, that they understood whether they were in Hawaii. We talked about the other day where we had schools in South Dakota, Harlem, the school that you attended, because he's a CFPS alum, and now in Brooklyn, that they understand who these kids were, how their families approach college, but don't approach college. And lastly, how high schools typically, I can just speak for New York City, just have a problem engaging with the journey that these kids have to go through to be able to understand the value of college, and then go through the processing of how do you get into college, and then how do you select college, and then when you're there, how do you survive college? So you can go from 29% having a bachelor's degree to our goal is 4 years, getting that up to 45%. So why not 100%? Why don't I weigh 150 pounds and drop 50 pounds right away? Ain't gonna happen. Doesn't need to happen. That's why
Baby steps.
baby steps.
Baby steps.
But also it's a turning point and a tipping point. It's when you get to from 29, we're probably lower, a lot lower now because of the pandemic and what's happening. But you get to 45%. Most likely you're touching a brother, sister, cousin who's sitting in school, right? So one of the things we do every Wednesday, we just started this with the CFPS Brilliant Pathways Hour. And we happen, the way our schedule works, for everyone, really. It's kind of weird. But Wednesdays, we have sort of the day open for this. So at 1 o'clock, we have kids, anything you want to ask an admissions counselor, an admissions person, or myself. And we're going to bring guests in there to talk to our kids. It's slow because, again, in this hybrid situation, even if it was mandatory, half people don't show. That's just what's happening in high schools, particularly my high school. But the ones who do show up get excellent information. They ask questions, right? You usually can't get someone to turn their camera on, particularly if it's voluntary. We invite them into the webinar and talk to us, and they're asking questions about, and that's why I was talking about Lehigh, because I know we have at least 2 or 3 kids. When I was talking to Don, Lehigh is not just the engineering school, but it pops in my mind about the size of school, where it is, but it can be excellent for some of these kids that we have, right? They don't know this, right? And some of our counselors, although one of them went to Susquehanna, that's right there in Central PA, but it's difficult to be able to tell kids the 4,000 schools that are out there and how to get onto that track. But it's easier to say, well, I'm thinking of this. Manny gets on, and Kelly's there, and I'm there, and we have a guy who's doing essay support for our kids. Because essays are really important when the SAT is not available, and someone's GPA is at best a suspect across the country. Who knows what their junior year looked like, or even the sophomore year, where we were in the pandemic. Just being honest with you, I think that's how councils might look at it too. So your essay needs to come out and be able to explain who you are, why you want to do this, and can you read and write the level that we need you to do. So we're starting to do that. So we're a year old in this partnership with CFBS. I will tell you about this sort of, what to look out for is, and this is sort of my theory in general around, well, anything in education or in a school, but definitely around college prep, is you got to win the adults. I didn't say parents, the adults in the building, right? They have to believe they have their own journeys, and many of them may not have had a difficult journey to why I'm going to college, never had to think about it. They sort of like use the analogy on the conveyor belt, and they were moving because of that social cultural capital where they live, and that's what they did. You go to college, and then we became teachers, and here, all right, here's how we have to work with kids. They need to step back and understand where these kids are. When you tell them, okay, we're going to have to do the FAFSA, it's like, you're going to have this kid find a parent at home to tell them, I'll do it for you, give me a tax. What? I have a son who's in college. We asked, don't even look at it, right? You don't need to do that. But because Mom and I, we did this stuff because we are knowledgeable about it. But you don't, you have to ask me any questions. Don't worry about it. But that is a difficult conversation about let's fill out this form. The sticker price of college shocks people. We all know that a lot of our kids would not be paying that price. But that's the price. It's like it's the price in the car. You have to go buy a car and you say, well, how much is it? It says $35, $4.99. If there's any type of decent car deal, well, the price is there. And then they want you to negotiate. Our kids stop at, it costs $6,000. I'm not going to be able to go. That's it, done. CUNY application at best, and I'll decide sometime in June which one do I want to go to open admissions, where they're missing out on a lot of stuff. So there's a lot to be understood. And I don't fault our counselors. I don't fault the teachers are more involved with kids because they teach them, some of them in multiple years. And just not a lot of knowledge. So I think what we're doing with CFES has a ton of promise. The biggest thing is letting the staff understand who CFES is, and that I know the counselors know who you are because thank goodness I don't have to read essays or I don't have to answer this question. In fact, they weren't even on the last CFES hour. We were doing that, Manny and team, because someone else is taking the load to talk to kids who's professional about what this looks like. And Manny kind of looks like our kids, right? Which is incredibly right. Good looking guy over here, and our kids look good too. But it's important that they see folks who he tells the story where he grew up and he went back to the DR and came back and was in this huge high school in Bronx, and how he found university of Vermont. How did he get to Vermont?
Well, I'll tell you in a second. That's how I'm gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, all right. And so, but and when I tell Manny to tell you a story, and tell one of the counselors we just hired, tell you a story. How'd you get to Susquehanna University? And she'll tell you, because I lived down the street from McDonald's, and after high school, I was going to work at McDonald's. And a counselor came to me and said, "Why don't you look at this?" And then boom, she's off in the middle of Pennsylvania, and 2 years later, she graduates. And that was her interview with me. It's okay, I think you're hired. Just do your story. I don't know if you have any other credentials, she does, but do your story. So I'm thankful for you listening to me pontificate. But I care so much about the underserved students and so forth. I care about everyone who has the ability, where traditionally they won't have access to understanding the opportunities of higher education. And it's troubling in our big systems of trying to get kids out of high school and get them educated, of how to just take them through this journey that's somewhat not related in their heads to, I got to be able to pass to go get this high school diploma. But there's so much out there for them. And I think people like brilliant pathways, I see it, yes. So I'm thankful for that. Man's gonna wrap up, right?
Well,
Or we take questions, but he has to wrap up about who he is. and what he does.
the wrap up is just to share a little bit of the story of the partnership that was developed a number of years ago, maybe 20 years ago, with the University of Vermont in a campus in the Bronx, Christopher Columbus. So this partnership was developed, in conjunction with, CFES, helping both parties. Christopher Columbus, it was a very low performing school, and when I say very low, graduation rates in the 30%. And well, the school no longer exists because they couldn't really sustain and help the students get educated. Well, I was one of those students, and because of this partnership, I have to be frank. For me, it wasn't that difficult to work hard because my competition was very weak, right? So for me to stand out in applying to colleges was actually very easy. I was top 10% of my class. My test scores weren't the greatest, but I had just moved back from the Dominican Republic. I was raised by my grandparents. So my English, while it was my first language, I had spent 10, 11 years in the Dominican Republic. So, and I had just taken the SATs, looking at Mr. Brown, since he used to work at the College Board. And I shared this the other day with the students. Based on my scores, I'm not capable of going to college, right? But with that partnership, and TT's here to keep me honest, one of the best things that the University of Vermont did for students like myself and 399 other students over the last 20 years is that level of support that is unconditional, right? They never worked with me and expected me to go to UVM. They gave me that opportunity to make that choice, to go to college. And to me, that was, at 17, I don't know what I'm doing. But what I did know was I had just moved back to the US. I didn't have a lot of support. My parents, my dad never even made it to high school. My mom graduated high school. So it was a lot of pride for them to see me, very similar to Mr. Luna's story about like they knew education was a powerful path for their kids, and they were pushing. They didn't know how to, right? So when we talk about kind of the college and career readiness program, especially for parents, it's so key because many of our parents, they want to help, right? Especially if they don't speak the language, they want to help. They don't know how to, right? And they don't know what they don't know. So when we provide those tools, that really is helpful. So to go back to that story, UVM continued to be kind of showing that support, talking to me about financial aid, talking to me about making a decision. And, coming from New York, you always have to be skeptical. That's one of those things, going into high school, you just never know who's going to be your friend or your enemy. So you have to be a little guarded. So I continued to look at other schools just to see what was out there. And it was very distinct what I saw, that it was a very genuine interest in me being successful as an individual. And I said, how is that possible when you have 10,000 kids at an institution like the University of Vermont, and you are showing so much interest in me and in my peers? And to me, that helped make the decision. Now, let's be honest, the other big part was the financial aid support that I received. I got to go to the University of Vermont for free because of this partnership that was developed. So when we talk to students about what is the power that we can have in the partnerships that we can help develop, is those things, right? That you can find the people, the resources to make it happen for students. But as you heard from both these gentlemen, you got to have buy-in in the schools. You gotta be honest about what are you trying to get out of this partnership. So when you go and make a pitch or seek out your network, you can see that there's actually a lot of resources out there more than you know, but you have to be intentional and you have to have that goal in mind. You want to make sure that students have a path that makes sense for them and you let them make the choice. And that is one of those things that we, especially in going through high school, and I know we mean well, we want to push students to, you got to go to college, you got to do this, you got to do that. And it comes from a great place, but if you're guarded, you're never going to do that, right? Because you're not listening to my needs, right? How do you know what I need? Well, nobody knows, right? But if you ask me, what do you think you want to be? And someone said this a couple of days ago, as you're working with students, rather than saying, what do you want to do? You have to say, what do you want to be remembered for? And that changes the dynamic, right? Because all of a sudden, it's not about, oh, I got to think about myself in 5 years. I'm thinking, where am I in 5 years? Because I'm taking ownership of where I want to be as an individual. So that partnership obviously is still standing strong. We have TT in the back who continues to run it. We have expanded beyond the Bronx. So we have sites in New York City, we have Pennsylvania, Chicago, and Manhattan. So these are the things that obviously take a lot. I mean, think about colleges and the level of support. I mean, University of Vermont is not a place where you go. It's not the cheapest public institution in the country, right? We know that. But as Stan said, when you go and you see the sticker price, you're like, yeah, I'm not going. Like $60,000, yeah, I'm not interested, right? But when you have people who are involved and know that, yeah, that might be the sticker price, but let's really talk about what that financial aid package for you might be. So when I was at UVM, and this is a conversation we always had with our New York City students, I can guarantee you for our students, there's no better financial aid packages, not even if they go to a state school in New York compared to UVM. There's not. They don't believe it, and it's fine, right? Go through the process. We want you to apply and find your fit and make the decision once you have all the information in front of you. And people like you can help them make that decision, right? Or guide them to ask the right question to understand what is this financial aid package telling me, right? You're talking about this is how much I'm going to pay for loans, but what about my parents? Colleges talk about the student debt, but many of them don't tell you about how much is a parent having to take out to make sure that you go into that college. We don't report on those things. So those are the kinds of things that, we can help our students kind of sort through to have a better understanding. So that's that partnership. So what we wanted to do with the session really was kind of go the full gamut, right? Starting from does it look like in high school? Getting into the CFES program. And we have some of our new schools here. And I'm hoping that, you've asked questions about, how do you make that happen, right? Because obviously we're giving you all the information, we're reflecting that. But in the moment, it looks very different, right? You could be overwhelmed. But remember, don't be paralyzed, right? You could feel like you're carrying a lot of load. You don't have to carry it on your own, right? You don't have to do a lot of additional work. We can help you with that. You might not have a partner. Let's help you identify, right? Realize what needs your institutions have, your schools, and let's work together to make sure we have a plan so we can identify, is mentoring really what we need? So let's go after that, right? So let's find our corporate partners. Let's find our college partners who can provide that mentorship for our students. If it's peer mentoring, let's find those students who are that 10%, who know what they're going to do, who are going to be successful, and let's bring them in so they're working with the students in the middle, right? Because the moment we move those students up, those students can also move the rest of them up. So with that, let's open it up for questions. real thing.
Sure.
Don't be shy, I know it's the
And you
morning.
could ask Leroy with the street smarts.
Yeah, what does that mean, Leroy?
Everything.
Go ahead.
My question is about the mentoring piece and, I'm listening to and your excitement, and, it's contagious. And I've been doing the mentoring, the adult mentoring and the peer mentoring piece for years and just frustrating and struggle. Not great administrative support, unfortunately. So I know that's the key component, but so I'm thinking about all these things you're saying, like, oh gosh, we've tried that, we've done this, we've done that. But I guess one of my big questions is, whether you call them like your scholars or the mentees, we've done something completely different this year where my colleague developed a survey. And from the results of the survey, we tried to get upwards of 50 people to be like the scholars. But we're trying to figure out, we don't have a lot of buy-in from like the adults in the building as well. It's really hard to get. No one wants to participate. It's frustrating. We're trying to figure out, like, where did you build that time into the day to meet with, have those meetings? Like, we're gonna approach it from like a group, and we're staying away from, this is your mentor, we're gonna stay away from that. Like, maybe it's more of a stigma, so we're just doing, it's gonna be a great CFBS activity that we're all gonna do together as a group. But where did you find time in your day, and how did you get the buy-in from those kids that you maybe identified when you invite them? They go, I don't want to do that. So
Great question. Okay, first of all, you have to identify them. So you have a survey, you did that, you did something similar. So then you bring them in, you send an invite, you describe it, say, hey, we're gonna call you down. You call them in, you call them down during homework. Okay, you introduce a program, say you've been selected as part of a leadership group called the NL Scholars. This is Manny Tejeda, your principal, introduce the team. We're going to schedule meetings twice a month, and we're going to provide you mentors twice a month. All right. But on top of that, you have a big kickoff. And I think I want to say Manny said this, and also the gentleman that I have not introduced yet, who is from Lehigh University, Dr. Outing, is right in the back. I met with him about a year and a half ago, right? Probably 6 months after we got into CFPS, and he said something that changed my outlook on it. He said, that's great that you're talking with kids and convincing kids, but what you need to do is convince the families of these kids, because most of our kids are first gen. They're going to be the first
that was
ones.
one of our top questions on our
Yes,
survey.
okay. It's not an end all, but that's who we're focused on. First generation. All right. You have to convince the parents, because the parents have also been there, done that. They didn't have those opportunities or didn't know that those opportunities existed. So we need to convince them that these opportunities are real, because otherwise, then you're every day you're telling the kid, you can do this, you can do this, and they go home and the parents are like, no, I can't. I was there. So that's why it's important that family aspect of it. Okay. So you have that. We had actually a parent dinner. All right. And I think Dr. Brown said that they had something where 4 parents showed up. Well, I feel blessed because we had about 8. Okay. But we also had other scholars show up without their families. They don't have a good relationship with their family. So that's fine. Come on in. We're going to feed you. And actually, it was good.
A strong motivator.
Right, right. So, but then we had it set up as a plan. So where do you find time in the day? Well, we have 3 lunch periods. So I have my one counselor who is our CFPS mentor and coordinator, Raquel Hoffert. She scheduled lunches for all of our scholars are in each of the lunches. You come up to 3:05 and you don't have to bring your lunch. Lunch is on me. So far it's been pizza. We might have to shift to something else soon. I don't know. Do teenagers ever get sick of pizza? I'm 52. I'm still not sick of pizza. So, but anyways.
So that's good.
So that's what we built in the time, because each lunch is 30 minutes. Okay, so we built that in twice a month. Okay, now where will they meet with their mentors? That's going to have to be scheduled after school time. Okay, but that's okay. And you know what? It could be over the weekend or whatnot. But one of the things that we make sure is that all the mentors are, they have their certification or their clearances, sorry, they have their clearances. And they will be meeting us, we're gonna get the training. Plus they have supervisors that actually they recruited, because through Lehigh, these students are mentors already to the incoming freshmen. So they already have some experience. So they're just gonna get trained through CFDS values and beliefs and the terminology. So they're familiar with it, because that helps them incorporate getting themselves into the culture, and also emulating what we want them to emulate to the mentees, which will then be passed on to the middle school. So ultimately, you utilize your lunch period, all right? And you don't have to do it alone. All you need 3 people in your building besides you.
Yeah, about that.
Okay, so that's fine. So then you work to make it work for you guys. And it doesn't have to look like us. Steal what you like. Doc is gonna steal some stuff. Good, steal it. That's why I'm here, because I got inspired by you guys and you helped give me some resources. So I was excited. I told him over a year ago, I go, oh, we're presenting. I said, no, we're not doing the virtual thing. No, we're presenting in person. I guarantee you're gonna bring us to present. And he was like, okay. And you know what? He pitched it. He goes, yeah, we have two guys that are ready to roll. Now, are we a finished product? No. It's never going to be a finished product, because you're going to have to shift, but you have to be okay with that. Now, my background is, I didn't share my background. I'm a special education teacher. You name disability, I taught a student with it, and I taught some intense kids. And I was actually trained at Lehigh University through Centennial School. So I'm used to do all kinds, I'm used to being outside the box. So it's never finished. So I'm okay with the change. You have to be okay with it. You have to be comfortable with that. Did that answer your question?
I mean, it encourages me. I mean, we've tried every angle, I think. I mean, I've worked and partnered with middle school students as well. You know,
Well, how about the middle school? How about the middle school counselors?
we have a huge lack of support from our, it's, the real working components are not there at our school, which is unfortunate. We don't really have the support from the guidance counselors, we don't really have the administrative support.
Maybe it's just reframing the work that they're doing and reframing that the value and showing the value. One of the second session yesterday is about how to establish and maintain corporate sponsorships and mentorships. It's like number one, you have to sell the program. You have to sell the program. And one thing I took away from it is get your ask within the first 2 sentences of what you want. Okay, get that out there, and then you know what? If that's not accepted, then you move on to the next one. Now, within a school, it's a little bit different, but you have to show the value of what this will do, because what's one of your goals in your building for your students? I mean, not for you, but I'm saying overall building goal.
I would say to help move them through these gaps and both.
Okay, gaps.
Academically and socially.
Okay, achievement gaps. Okay, so if you have, bless you, if you have a mentorship program, it's going to help you solve other things. Heather the other day said it will help you solve other things. It will help solve discipline issues. It will help fill in those gaps. Because the thing is that when even those kids that get in trouble, yeah, they might not be able to mentor somebody right away, but you know what? Those are the kids you actually want to buy in, because those are the ones those are your gap kids. Those are the kids not achieving. Those are the kids not graduating. Those are the kids getting in trouble. So if you can get them bought into something and think of somebody other than themselves by giving of themselves, then that's a culture shift. It's not easy, but you know what? Start small. The worst thing you can do is give up.
And I'm not.
I know you're not. That's why you're here.
Thank you.
Can I make one comment?
Yeah.
Each step of the way. Counter particular obstacles. Calmness. Program. On the phone, so That, we're actually here to not coach you, but to remind you of what you already know about how to get this done, and help direct you. But we're good at that, we like that, we enjoy that. So I think he's given you a number of best practices and techniques to encounter a number of different obstacles, et cetera. But he's gonna continue to go. And it's really important that you keep your spirits up, your energy up about this a lot, so that the people around you will feed on that.
And your energies. I'm glad you're here in person too. 'Cause
I
that's what's
got-
getting me
It's easy to get fired up
excited
about
again.
this.
We're
You
gonna
get-
do this.
Hey,
so thank
if
you.
you're not fired up and excited about kids, you might want to find another profession. But that's it.
Well, we've been talking a lot about stealing, and I think we've stole at least 12 minutes of your time that we went over. So I just want to say thank you to all for obviously participating. Thank you for speakers, for sharing. Thank you to you for helping us keep track of things and letting us know we're all working in shape.
If anybody has any questions, I'll hang and speak to you. Thank you, guys. It's a pleasure seeing you.